Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of Fairness Protocol. In this episode, we're gonna talk about many things, including gas fees and how basically blockchains work and stuff like that, and standards and a lot of other stuff. You'll get the gist of it once we go further down the path of the fourth episode. But for now, we wanted to start with a very simple question that's been asked on the Farsi, the Persian episode of the Furnace Protocol, the fourth episode of Furnace Protocol in Farsi. So let's talk about that. So the question was this: in Iran, there are so many dunes and deserts. So why can't we just fill them up with solar panels and use the electricity generated from those solar panels to fuel our mining process? So that creates a decentralized system, and the government can't stop us because we're not even like using the country's electrical energy. So we're not essentially doing anything illegal, right? So that's a good idea on paper, but can we actually accomplish such a big, huge thing? Okay, that is the question. And the answer is, as of now, many countries are actually doing something along those lines, using solar panels and new reusable energies to extract energy for the same goals as I just mentioned earlier, like mining processes and everything. And from what I know, there are two kinds of solar panels. One variant uses batteries, which makes them extremely expensive, and the other variant doesn't use batteries, meaning they can't store the energy they generate. Instead, they use the generated energy for immediate purposes. Many countries are researching efficient ways to utilize the reusable energies, ranging from wind and water energies to harnessing power from the seismic movements of volcanoes or crashing waves from the seas and stuff like that, right? And the thing is, in specifically in Iran, many of those basic measures haven't been taken yet, and it takes time for third world country like Iran to acquire the means and culture that is required to actually implement these technologies, right? So the thing is, actually, Bitwoad, like Barbara himself, had this idea that he would go to universities and colleges, and he could find and talk to directors and professors about creating a mining operation. That's what he did actually. And we like if it did that, they could learn from the operation and make profits, and they could even sell shares to foreign investors and receive money for the services and stuff like that. Okay, and basically a share of their profit. That's what I'm saying, right? However, no one really listened to Barbot back then, and no one really cared about the topic because they didn't know what it is, and like it's harder to understand how you can just start up a mining operation if you don't necessarily understand the field of cryptocurrencies. Okay, so in conclusion, the possibility of like creating a mining operation with like solar panels and stuff like that is there, right? But the thing is, right now in this country, like in Iran specifically, uh, I don't think that's probable because of like the things that I just talked about. Maybe no one still understands how cryptocurrency actually works and like how beneficial it could be to every single party that's like involved in creating a mining operation that's functional. So, moving on from that, let's talk about the components of a transaction because we keep talking about like cryptocurrencies and anything and everything that revolves around cryptocurrencies, but we never actually talk about the components of a transaction, like what makes a transaction, be a transaction and how it really works, right, in the field of cryptocurrencies or even beyond that, right? So, to understand how a transaction works, we have to first understand what it is made of. First and foremost, we have a transaction hash. What is a transaction hash? It's a collective hash of all the information regarding a transaction. This information goes through a function of hashes to become the transaction hash. Since it is unique, it behaves like a receipt, right? And you can track your transactions using it. The status of the transaction is the state of the said transaction while it's undergoing in the process, right? Transactions can have one of the five status options, let's call them, and it includes pending, recorded, cleared, reconciled, and also voided. In every transaction, there's a label called a block, which is the number of the blocks your transaction is recorded in, and a label called confirmation, which shows the number of blocks that have been generated and mined after the block your transaction was recorded into. The confirmation number increases every time you refresh the page. And if you add the block and confirmation numbers, you will and should get the number of the block that it is currently being mined. Okay. And for all this information, like all the things that I just talked about, you can use block explorers. It's like they're like free tools. You can Google them and you can see them and use them, and you can utilize them to understand what I'm really, really talking about. Okay. And back to our original topic, the confirmation number indicates the security and validity of your transaction. In a more, let's say, practical sense, since the longest chain is the main chain, as we talked about before in our like last episode, I think, confirmation shows the length of the main chain concerning the block in which your transaction was recorded, right? And timestamp is the exact time and date of your transaction. So if you use block explorers, you can see your timestamp as well. And the timestamp is recorded and as an explorer among every other transaction, right? Note that the blockchain doesn't record all of this information in the matter that it is shown in a block explorer. What we see is mostly for our understanding and to help us find a certain transaction if we need to, right? In the blockchain, the timestamp is also recorded in seconds rather than the UTC date and time, which is like the universal time coordination, right? And it is called epoch time, right? Epoch timestamps is the number of seconds that have elapsed since January 1st, 1970 UTC, right? Also, every transaction has a from and a to, and the item being transacted between these two isn't always limited to money. Most of the time, it's information, and that is like sent from one address to another. And going back, the from in the transaction that you're seeing, for example, is of course the address of the person that sent the information, whether it's money or whether it's a smart contract or sign or anything. And the two is of course the address that receives this message, this transaction, or information or money or anything. Now let's talk about gas prices, because like it's a very big thing to talk about and everyone is also concerned about this and everything. So imagine there are a plethora of computers all around the world that are sorting Ethereum's information, right? When you make a transaction, this information is recorded in those computers. It is then processed and executed, right? And that information will also be recorded in those computers. So each and every one of these computers is using some energy for the process, whether it's the same source of energy or not, it doesn't really matter. It's just some energy, right? And the energy, of course, is called gas. So when we're talking about gas, we're talking about the energy that the computers are using, for example, in this example. And if it is in the form of money, actually. Let me explain further. Instead of paying it directly with Ethereum or BNB or any other you know, cryptocurrency, the developers have created a variable in which the payment of the gas price makes the operators of the said computers put the processing power to regulate that information and transactions. Okay, the smallest unit of Ether is equivalent to 10 times minus 18 Ethereum. Okay, and the unit for measuring gas actually is called gigaway, or in short, Gwei. Okay, that's how they call it. It's G Wei actually. And one Gwei equals 0.000000001, or 10 powered by minus 9 Ethereum. Okay, and the standard gas price is 21,000 Gwei. Gas prices will be decided based on a network's congestion at that point in time. So the gas price is constantly fluctuating and changing. There are sites called gas stations in which the gas prices of various chains and systems are displayed in real time. So you can actually Google that, and you don't actually Google for gas stations because you get like gas station pictures or something like that. So if you want, you can Google like a gas price of Ethereum or whatever chain that it is that you want to know the gas price for. And of course, you'll get the websites that are, that we call the gas stations, but you'll get them, and you can, of course, track the gas prices of your favorite networks on those websites. Now, as we said, a gas is a monetary thing. Its price is calculated every second based on how populated and dense the servers are. Okay, but the question that might come up is when we make a transaction, it takes a few seconds to actually get done. What if in those few seconds the gas price changes, right? What if it goes higher, and what if it goes lower? Do I like get my money back, or do I like lose some extra money, or what? And yeah, actually, those problems happen every so often. When you put a transaction with a gas fee of like 7 gigaway, and in the few seconds that this transaction is getting broadcasted and like the information is being exchanged and written in the blocks with all the other transactional processes, the gas fee pumps up to like 12 gigaway, let's say, right? Then your transaction will get stuck midway because you paid a smaller fee and than the average, right? And the priority of your transaction goes down actually. Okay. The opposite can also happen. If you put a transaction with a gas fee of like 12 gigaway and it so happens that the gas fee comes down to like 7 gigaway or something, then your transaction will nearly, let's say, instantaneously be done. Okay, so it's not like really your transaction gets lost in a way, it just loses or gains priority over the other transactions that are happening in the blockchain. Now let's talk about gas limit. Okay, it's a term you've probably heard a lot, but you may not know what it is and what it actually does and how it works. Okay, so let's talk about it. The gas limit is a maximum amount of gas a person is willing to spend on a single transaction. That's it. The gas limit is set by the user, and it determines the maximum amount of computational work that can be done for the transaction. Okay, a higher gas limit usually means the user believes the transaction will require more work. Okay, however, if the gas limit is too low, the transaction may fail. I'm not saying it will fail, but it may fail because like uh, there are like stuff that can happen, right? To prevent the execution of infinite loops, each transaction has a limit on the amount of gas that can be consumed. Okay, every action requires a certain amount of gas. For example, and these aren't real numbers by the way, multiplying requires 10 gas, for example, right? While subtraction requires like 5 gas, and reading the information provided uh, for that computational thing to happen is 7 gas. Okay, the gas limit is decided upon by the user so that if the entire process requires more gas than intended, it fails the transaction altogether. Okay. And you can actually utilize this system, like how gas and gas limits and everything works, You can utilize it so that you can prioritize your transaction, or if you want your, like, if your transaction is not like, you don't need it done immediately, you can set your gas fee lower, to like pay less taxes. Like, gas is pretty much a tax in like our current, centralized finance system, right? So you can actually set your gas limit to be lower if you want it to be, so that your transaction isn't actually prioritized, but you're paying less tax. Like, that's actually essentially how it works. Now, another topic: what is ERC 720 or 720? What are BEP 20 and ERC 20? What I want to explain in this topic is Ethereum. With that in mind, I want to talk about EIP first. What is an EIP? EIP stands for Ethereum Improvement Proposals. It is described as a protocol that allows developers to propose standards for the Ethereum platform. This include core protocol specifications, client APIs, and contract standards. Okay, but note that EIPs are specifically for changes to the core systems and do not include smart contracts and such. Okay, as an example here is EIP 1559, which made changes to the network, not to the contracts themselves. Okay, the changes include how the blocks are arranged, and that the gas price has to be recorded in every block, or when the transaction should get burned or canceled. Okay, these changes that are made to the chain and to the core systems of a token are called EIPs. Okay, another set of standards is ERC, which stands for Ethereum Request for Comment. Okay, and these standards are specifically tailored towards smart contracts. ERC 20 is a form of standard for smart contracts that is used for writing tokens. These are standards used for smart contracts, creating NFTs and various other smart contracts. But as a whole, ERC standards are all related to smart contracts, okay? When you look at a contract, it is made up of different parts. It obviously has a name, and after that, there's a compiler version, and a compiler version is what turns the contract into like zeros and ones so that the system understands them, right? As computers don't really understand blockchains as we humans do. Computers understand what is called a bytecode, and blockchains are all written in that language. Okay, so compilers, what they do necessarily is that they make smart contracts meaningful. Okay, and that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Like like standards. What is an ERC 20 and what is an EIP? Moving on. Now, I understand in the first version of the Fairness Protocol in this episode, there was a question, and the question is a very important question, so we need to talk about it. The question is like this: if a contract is executed on blockchain, it can't be changed anymore, right? No, that's very wrong. If a contract is created with a changeability function, it can always be altered. Okay, there are even proxy contracts that can modify the main contract on the chain. There are many ways and functions. Okay, but right now I can't tell you how to determine if like a developer can or cannot do something like that, since it requires context and prior knowledge about other things. Okay, this will be discussed in another session or another episode probably, but anyway, however, regarding functions, some functions allow the destruction of a contract entirely, okay? Even if it has been executed on the chain, with the press of a single button, one can destroy the entire contract and claim all the money circulating within it for themselves, okay? Some functions and methods enable contract updates, okay? This should be checked to ensure the safety of a contract, and we will discuss how to do this in the next sessions, okay? In the case of USDT, if we examine its contract, we will see the presence of the pause function and the unpause function. Okay, these aspects can be understood even by those who have no knowledge of coding. as they are not written in the code or anything similar like that. Okay, the pause and unpause functions allow one to freeze or unfreeze holdings in their wallet. Okay, other functions included in this contract are blacklisting, removing blacklisting, and destroying black funds. Okay, which means that they can add your address essentially to a blacklist, remove your address from the blacklist, and destroy your tether in your own wallet. Actually, which does not exist in a token like DAI. Okay, DAI has mint and burn functions, but they're inaccessible to anyone, and they're mainly used for loaning purposes on the maker chain, right? Ensuring that the price always remains at $1. DAI does not have pause or unpause or blacklisting or removing blacklisting functionalities, meaning no one can take your DAIs from you under any circumstances. Before, here's another subject to talk about because we talked about blockchains and everything like that. So let's just change it up a bit. Before Dogecoin was released, some people bought some amount of it in pre-sale, okay? And when they bought it, the price was much lower, okay? But now we see wallets with millions of dollars in Dogecoin because of the rise in the price. How can we recognize a good and profitable project so we can pre-buy it before its release? Okay. That is a good question, and the answer may be vague a bit, but it's like an honest answer. Okay, so here's the answer. The key is connections. Okay, you need to have connections to stay updated and be introduced to projects, to good projects. Okay, and to know what's happening in the entire ecosystem. Bitbot himself, the guy that we all know, right? He wanted to buy Doge in the pre-sale himself, but he always says that he couldn't participate because simply he didn't have the necessary connections. Okay, that's what he said himself. Okay, before Shiba came out, there were no such projects, and Shiba practically started the trend of projects with high rewards and minimal wasting time, especially since Elon Musk also supports it. When Shiba was launched, there were no similar projects available. Okay, you can receive notifications about these projects and more on Dex tools. Okay, and similar websites and projects. Okay. I have we have actually introduced Dex tools on this channel before. If you have 100,000 units of Dex, they will invite you to a series of groups where you can find connections. Okay. However, generally pre-sales are limited and not everyone can participate. Okay, especially if you do not have those connections. Pre-sales also lock your funds because the market can face difficulties if it remains open. Therefore, you cannot withdraw your tokens immediately. And remember ICOs and IEOs before all these meme coins, right? ICOs and IEOs are Binance, for instance, used to have a private sale followed by a public sale. What is a private sale, you may ask? It's when a project organizes offers to a selected few individuals uh, that like they can for that they basically give a deal to a selected few individuals to buy their token for example for 70 cents instead of the market price of $1. Okay, but in return they cannot withdraw their funds for a year or something. Okay, on the other hand, those who have bought in the public sale wouldn't receive a discount but would be able to access their funds immediately. Now, that was pretty off topic. It was just a bonus we wanted to talk about because because it's a very delicate matter. Okay, let's get back to our original topics. Here's one. What are smart contracts? Okay, smart contracts are self-executing computer programs primarily coded in Solidity, okay, that can automatically enforce the rules and provisions of a contract agreement. These contracts are stored on a blockchain, providing a tamper evidence system for conducting transactions without the need for intermediaries or third parties. Okay, smart contracts have numerous applications in crypto, including decentralized finance or DeFi, supply chain management, and more. Smart contracts have revolutionized the DeFi sector, really, okay? Allowing individuals to trade financial assets without a central authority and eliminating the need for intermediaries, okay? Such as banks or exchanges or stuff like that. They essentially pretty much enable the existence of decentralized exchanges or DEXs, where individuals can trade cryptocurrencies in a decentralized environment without relying on central points of control, like banks or brokers or stuff like that, right? Smart contracts are also used to create or and operate decentralized lending and borrowing platforms, enabling individuals to lend and borrow cryptocurrencies in a trustless, decentralized environment. These contracts can be programmed to automatically manage the lending and borrowing process, which includes origination, interest payments, and loan repayment and stuff like that. While smart contracts are mainly based on the Ethereum blockchain, they are not limited to it. Okay, other blockchains alongside Ethereum and other languages alongside Solidity are used to write these contracts. But these are the most standard ones. Okay, smart contracts were not invented with Ethereum. Also, okay, they existed long before blockchain, but gained prominence due to their usability and accessibility in crypto, right? Contrary to popular belief, also, smart contracts are neither smart nor contracts, okay? They're lines of code responsible for regulating the transfer of our information and transactions, basically, okay? One of the many benefits of smart contracts is that they cannot be censored. If the developer of the smart contract did not include a function to change the contract, then there is no way to destroy or alter the contract. Okay, that's probably actually why we call it a smart contract, because that's like very close to what a contract is, right? And the only way to stop the contract from performing its job is to shut down the entire internet, because these contracts operate in a decentralized manner. Okay, so you can, for example, go and destroy database or a single computer to like remove the contract and the smart contract from working and operating. Okay. Now that we are talking about like smart contracts, let's also talk about oracles. Okay, what is an oracle? Blockchain oracles are entities that connect blockchains to external systems, enabling smart contracts to execute based on real world inputs and outputs. Okay. Oracles provide digital systems with a means to connect to existing legacy systems, okay, data sources, and advanced calculations. One thing I should mention is that, as we mentioned earlier, these contracts are not smart, okay? They're more akin to encrypted information and are programmed to perform specific tasks, okay? They function like applications running on the blockchain. Another point to note is that we currently lack the necessary infrastructure to fully utilize this system. While you can have a house ownership contract on a specific blockchain and transfer ownership to someone else, receive payment, and obtain the required documents without the involvement of any intermediaries other than you and the buyer. Okay, having your house ownership contract, um, on a digital blockchain does not hold much significance in the real world. Actually, okay, there are still various other requirements, including legal documents, and in certain cases, you may even need the court's intervention to resolve certain matters. Smart contracts are, not widely used in these areas. Like adoption is a key word here. The adoption is not really there. Therefore, before we can effectively use them in domains beyond cryptocurrencies and transactions, We must first establish the necessary, you know, infrastructure, basically. This may be easier in first world countries, but considerably, um, they're more challenging in third world countries like Iran. Another issue we currently face is the problem of centralized oracles. Okay, although they're used to connect digital systems to the real world, they pose vulnerabilities and can be compromised due to their centralized nature. Oracles play a critical role in the execution of smart contracts by bringing external data into the equation. Okay, for example, if you're writing a smart contract that needs to know what the weather is like, you can have an oracle give you that information, and the oracle can get that information, for example, from AccuWeather, which is a website that forecasts weather and stuff like that. Okay, now, however, there present significant risks because if they're trusted sources mm, that can be hacked, they can compromise executions of smart contracts they provide data to. Okay, so for example, if your Oracle is compromised, then your whole smart contract that's built upon it is in risk, right? For example, consider a scenario where two individuals make a bet on tomorrow's weather, right? With one predicting sunny weather and the other one predicting rain. Okay, to determine the winner, they rely on a weather forecast website, just like I said, like AccuWeather or stuff like that. Okay, which serves as the oracle. In this case, the weather forecast website is centralized and susceptible to hacking, which raises serious security concerns. However, smart contracts are evolving rapidly, okay, and efforts are being made to eliminate or replace oracles with some very more secure alternatives. Now, let's talk about the DAO attack, the DAO hack, and its reasons. The DAO, or the DAO, sorry, was launched in 2016, and it was an early decentralized autonomous organization intended to function as an investor directed venture capital firm. Regarded as a groundbreaking project, the DAO raised 150 million worth of Ethereum and stood out as one of the initial crowdfunding endeavors and prominent projects built on the Ethereum blockchain, which was only 1 year old at the time. However, less than 3 months after its launch, the DAO fell victim to a hack, resulting in the theft of 60 million worth of Ether. To restore the stolen funds, the Ethereum blockchain underwent a hard work fork. Sorry, although this decision was not, unanimously supported. As a result, the network split into two different separate blockchains, Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Now, what was the security issue encountered by the DAO project? Surprisingly, it was quite minor actually. The problem originated from one line of code being positioned below another line of code instead of above it. During the introduction of initial coin offerings or ICOs, the fundraising process worked as follows. Participants would invest money into the project and their funds would be locked, preventing immediate withdrawal. Okay. Subsequently, an alternative method emerged, okay, allowing participants to withdraw their funds at any time. Okay. Through a voting system, it was determined how much money would be allocated to the project via a contract rather than entrusting funds to an individual. They were entrusted to a contract, such as the DAO project, to implement the system within the ICO environment. However, an error occurred in the implementation where a participant attempted to withdraw their funds and pressed the withdraw button. Okay, the system would first release the funds and then reduce the holdings, contrary to the correct procedure of reducing the holdings and then providing the funds to the individual. This misplacement of two lines of code resulted in an exploit during which an individual initiated around 6,000 simultaneous requests. As a consequence, the system only reduced the holding once. allowing the attacker to obtain nearly $60 million worth of crypto assets. Now let's answer some small questions that are asked by the participant. Like in the original version of Furnace Protocol that was in Farsi, there was some small questions asked by the participants that we thought are actually most important. So let's talk about them. Question number one. We mentioned that during the Dep attack, numerous requests were sent simultaneously. How did that happen? And to be completely honest, we don't know. The reality is that something like that is currently impossible and cannot be achieved. However, as previously mentioned, the Ethereum chain underwent a hard fork, resulting in two chains, Ethereum Classic and the Ethereum we use today. It's possible that such an occurrence was feasible on Ethereum Classic, okay, but it's not possible to do that on the Ethereum network as we know it today. To find an answer, you may need to delve into the inner workings of Ethereum Classic, okay, which is like not that significant. So that's like research work for you if you're interested, but we don't know why you would be interested. Question number two is this. In previous sessions, we mentioned that when the longer chain becomes the main chain, the shorter chain is discarded. Now, if I make a transaction on the shorter chain and it gets discarded, does my money return to my wallet? Okay. Here's the thing. Technically speaking, what you're saying, what the question is saying is correct, okay? But the wording is entirely incorrect. Yes, the longest chain becomes the main chain, but the shorter chain is not completely destroyed and not thrown away. It still exists, okay? But the system simply disregards it. When you make a transaction on the shorter chain and it gets discarded, sorry, it doesn't mean that the money is returned to your wallet. It means that the transaction never occurred in the first place at all because we haven't altered the transaction itself, okay? But rather the history of it. Let me clarify with an example. Imagine that A and B have their ledgers for their financial records, okay? A writes in his ledger that he sent 10 BTC to B, but B doesn't record the transaction in his ledger, okay? When we consider B's ledger as the main ledger or referred to as the main chain, the transaction is absent. There's no deduction from A's holding or an increase in B's holding, let's say. And based on B's ledger, the transaction did not take place at all. Okay, what we do is modify our ledger. We don't alter the transaction itself, and the network does not reimburse you. You know. Additionally, it's worth noting that Bitcoin and Ethereum differ in how they calculate holdings. Ethereum follows an account based approach where your holdings are within your account and can fluctuate. On the other hand, Bitcoin adopts an input output based method. This means that your Bitcoin holdings are determined by your UTXOS, okay, which stands for unspent transaction outputs, okay, which are accumulated sums of previously received transactions in multiple wallets that you haven't spent. Now, I know we are kind of hopping on this branch and that branch, but that's essentially what the Furnace Protocol is about. We want to talk about the fundamentals of the cryptocurrency and everything related to cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and everything like that. But we really don't want to make it boring for you guys because we know that maybe sometimes it can get boring, but we don't like that. We don't like it to be like that for you guys listening to this podcast or whatever you call it on your computers, on your phones. We just want it to be completely educational only and kind of fun and jolly as well. Okay, so we're going to hop back on smart contracts and blockchain. Okay, as I said, we're kind of jumping from one branch to another, but it is how it is. Okay, now transferring your ownership documents on the blockchain in its simplest form is similar to how NFTs work. as you can treat them in a similar manner. Okay. The most straightforward way to transfer ownership is by sending the ownership document from my wallet to yours. In a more realistic and complex scenario, intermediary contracts will be involved in this transaction. A good example is real estate. Real estate as a whole can be treated as a contract, you know. The entire process can work as follows. You enter into the contract and see people listing their properties, okay? You pay them money and in return you receive ownership of the house or of the whatever it is that you've bought, right? However, implementing these changes require infrastructure. Uh, as you know, in our society, it is how fundamentally all how things operate, basically. But like, that's how it works. Okay. Now, we mentioned that the government should validate the documents placed on the blockchain, but that would still make it centralized. If you trace the chain of commands, you will eventually find the government at the top. Okay. When the government issues you an NFT as your document and verifies it, it remains the same. It's similar to wrapped Bitcoin, where you exchange real Bitcoin for wrapped Bitcoin through an organization. You might perceive wrapped Bitcoin as a decentralized token, an ERC20 token on the Ethereum blockchain, with each one having the exact value as one BTC, right? However, since the exchange is centralized, the chain becomes centralized as well. A truly decentralized system should be decentralized throughout. Like, if it wants to be truly decentralized, the whole concept of CeFi, of centralized finance, should die with it, so that the system gets completely decentralized. Okay, we will witness the transition from document to NFT in a few years, but it won't be highly decentralized. Okay, it will still be centralized with the government dictating many aspects, right? The moment we achieve a decentralized system is when even governments become contracts, as they, consist of people making decisions based on a set of variables and laws. However, this this requires significant changes in our way of life and like how we live our lives as humans. Okay. Now, we talked about the automation of the real estate industry. Now, if we have such a decentralized hub where people can buy and sell their real estate, do the people working in the industry profit at all, or do they just lose their jobs? Okay. And to be honest with you, it's not really limited to the real estate industry alone. Okay. When the system undergoes NFTization, many of the jobs that we currently know and we perform will vanish. And smart contracts, which will actually be smart by then, rather than just being contracts, will take over. One of the first jobs to disappear completely will be judges and lawyers. Okay, smart contracts will automate the legal system. So if someone violates the law, there will be no need for courts, juries, and lawyers. Okay, and Oracle will provide all the relevant information to the related smart contract, and without the involvement of judges or lawyers or the juries, the offender will be punished. A simple example of driving, a simple example of it is driving offenses. Okay. Currently, if there's a car crash, you need to hire a lawyer, sue the offender, and go to court to present your case. With smart contracts, such procedures won't be necessary because the contract in charge will automatically punish the offender when the crash occurs. Lawyers and judges will become practically useless unless they transition to become law contract writers and coders who create and manage such contracts. In the long run, intermediary structures, let's say, will disappear. And there will be no need for companies like Amazon because smart contracts will handle individual product sales, and another contract will hire others for item delivery, eliminating the need for such structures. Social media platforms like Facebook and others, as we know today, will also cease to exist. If media is regulated by smart contracts, our data can be secure instead of being exposed to individuals like Mark Zuckerberg, as we know, and or any other companies. Additionally, you may wonder about the storage of the vast amount of information on social media platforms, okay? Particularly platforms like YouTube with numerous long videos. And you're right. They won't be stored on the blockchain as it's technically impossible. However, their hash can be saved and contained in the blockchain, while the actual videos or other content can be stored in various cloud storage systems. In the future, we're discussing, numerous systems will change, and along with those changes, our way of life, including our jobs and activities, will also change. Smart contracts can be used in nearly all fields except for very few, very specific ones. Even going to the doctor will change as the entire admission and payment process becomes automated. Prescriptions can be sent instantly to the pharmacy, which can then send you the required medications as you leave the doctor's office, for example. Patient information and identity verification will be quick and efficient, with an entire database accessible to every doctor you visit, containing your complete medical history. Now, all of what we just talked about right now are startup and business ideas basically that can and will be successful in the future if they happen. Okay, and they will happen like one way or another, right? The only difference is who will make them happen. You will either pay for its services or make money out of it. Okay, we already know about many of the things that will be invented and achieved by the human race, such as flying cars, space expeditions, smaller and more compact smartphones, and so on, right? Many of these fields require a significant amount of capital and human resources to enter, okay? Without the knowledge, capital, and human resources as a person with a startup idea, the most you can do is assist someone else who has the necessary resources and shares the same idea basically. However, the remarkable thing about the blockchain technology is that it hasn't been developed that extensively, okay? There aren't many competitors in this field, unlike the other fields that we mentioned, right? Like the judges and the juries and everything like that, right? One reason why you can't compete in fields like smartphones is the tremendous amount of time and resources invested by companies like Apple in developing the latest iPhones. Okay, it takes a lot of time and development. The prime reason this field offers an opportunity to make money is that, firstly, the majority of people don't still even know what a blockchain is and how it works. Okay, secondly, there aren't many major competitors yet. And lastly, when you belong to the generation that is growing alongside blockchain technology, similar to how Bill Gates grew alongside computer technology, right now understanding blockchain and how it works is relatively easy because it's still in the early stages of development. Okay, but if you try to explain how computers work or how the internet functions and all the intricacies of a computer system, people won't comprehend it, right? They simply can't grasp it because these technologies have advanced significantly. However, when Bill Gates started, it was similar to blockchain, newly invented, developing, and easy enough for him to grasp and grow alongside the technology. You might think that like Bill Gates was a genius, and I'm not denying that he was a genius, right? But it was much easier to enter the field back then. and the competition was much less fierce. All right. If you go back in time and to when the computer revolution was happening, basically, you will see how easy it is to understand computers and the functioning and their functionality and like how it all works and the building bricks of computers and how everything everything like the cogs how they interact with each other and stuff like that. Okay. Well, it would be much easier for you. Okay. When it's less developed. Okay. The thing is, blockchain was easier to understand a year ago, and even easier that it's been a year before that. It's like very easier now than it will be a year from now. I don't know what kind of technologies and complex stuff will emerge from will loom out of the darkness like in the next year. We don't know that yet. Okay, so right now is like much easier than the next year, probably. We don't know, right? And that's basically because you have grasped the basics from the very beginning. So next year, when something complex looms out of the darkness, you will understand how it works because you have grasped it from the beginning. And once you understand how something works, you can adapt and use it effectively, right? Currently, you are free to do whatever you desire with the blockchain technology, and it is even easier to do that in a third world country like Iran. So here was a question asked in the Farsi version of the Furnace protocol. The question is as follows: with Ethereum's fees being so high, how does Peepuff calculate the fee for every peep? Okay. Peepuff is a decentralized application built on the Ethereum blockchain, and users need to provide a small amount of Ethereum to participate. In return for this payment, the user's identity and personal freedom are no longer peripheral considerations. It follows the motto of free people or free services. Previously, the way it worked was that for every 15 peeps, a moderate amount of Ethereum would be collected as a fee. However, currently you need to first sign the PEEP. Okay, if you only sign the PEEP, the information you input won't be saved on the blockchain. Essentially, the fee is for the application to store the information you provided on the blockchain. If you only sign it, it will be saved only on the platform of the application, like Twitter, for example. The increasing cost of fees will only be addressed using scalability solutions, which can be further discussed in future sessions as we delve in deeper into the topic. When Shiba came out, it started a very satisfying trend of continuously increasing price on the price chart, and everyone who bought the coin was very happy with it. Although Barbo himself says, well, kind of like inclusively, that he personally experienced difficulties with Shiba when he bought the coin because for a month the price dropped by 60% to 70%, and only after that it went up sixfold and gained popularity, okay, prompting more people to buy it essentially. The trend with most of these, sorry for the explicit language, but it's just what it's called, okay? But the trend with most of these shitcoins is the same, okay? But I don't think we can call Shiba a shitcoin at this point. Shiba is currently listed on Coinbase and it has its deals and it's much bigger than a shitcoin, right? It's more of a meme coin now. Fundamentally, meme coins depend on their communities, okay? Every meme coin is as strong as its community. Their ideas and plans are more of a facade, okay? Generally, the value of anything depends on the number of people who believe in its value, okay? And if you have noticed recently, Shiba gathered 250,000 signatures for it to be included on the Robinhood platform. These 250,000 people, the ones who are actively involved in the community, who discuss it and its transactions, form the foundation and the strength of its coin. The plans and features, such as its decks and how they will implement certain things, or like Shibarium, which is just happening. It's like a metaverse for Shiba, and it's actually the biggest event that is going to happen this year, probably if it happens this year. Are just they're essentially tools to support the community. You see, Barbo talks about how when this coin came out, he told people that it's a scam, right? That it would increase in price, but ultimately be a scam because of the people behind it used the fake Elon Musk Twitter account to run a funding campaign for it. Okay, he knew that this campaign had a very high chance of being a scam, but it had the potential to become big, right? What happened then was that a lot of money was raised, right? And the people behind it saw the opportunity for this coin to become something huge, okay? The volume of its transactions were so high that they decided to stay in the market. Most cryptocurrencies, except for the ones that start big, like the ones being introduced on Binance initially, are scams in the beginning. But after a while, when things go well, they decide to stay and become legitimate. Shiba was like this and turned out to be profitable. At the moment, the Shiba project is much bigger than most of the other projects, with good fundamentals out there. And meme coins have a very bright future compared to what we call altcoins. Also, Shiba didn't have the means to run a scam as easily as others do, right? Since they didn't have a contract with a termination button. Okay, what do meme coins do is a question, and apart from all the systematic technical points, they use people's emotions to gather the community is the answer. Dogecoin is a silly old joke that has generated more profits than most projects out there, right? These meme coins utilize these emotions and meanings to keep their communities together. It's more about culture than technology, really. And in reality, all cryptocurrencies rely on their communities, right? If crypto runs solely on technology, then Bitcoin wouldn't even fit into the top 10, let alone be the number one, of course, because there are like numerous other cryptocurrencies out there with far superior technology than Bitcoin. Now, again, in the Farsi version of Fairness Protocol, in this section of the episode 4, Barbaud and the participants talked about two things, okay? Wojak token and pumping and dumping, okay? So if it's kind of like out of pocket to talk about Wojak token out of the blue, I'm sorry, it's just the part of the just trust the process, okay? A Wojak token is a crypto asset of a project that aims to gather all people on a decentralized platform with the power of internet memes. Wojak, which will be the main and only valid cryptocurrency of the project, will be the sole currency used in the related project. It will facilitate the purchase, sale, and exchange of NFT based internet memes, as well as activities, socialization, and all associated sub services. The Wojak project aims to leverage blockchain technology to create a safe and transparent ecosystem for internet meme enthusiasts. It also plans to enable these individuals to showcase their creativity and express themselves freely. However, most importantly, their goal is to help people who have lost money in trades to recover their funds, which is kind of like silly. Anyway, more about pump and dump and what it is. Listen, pump and dump is a manipulative scheme that attempts to boost the price of a stock or security through fake recommendations. Okay, these recommendations are based on false, misleading, or greatly exaggerated statements. Right, the perpetrators of a pump and dump scheme already have an established position in the company's stock and will sell their positions after the hype has led to a higher price share. This practice is illegal based on the securities law and can lead to heavy fines. Just right now, as I'm recording this, I don't know when you're going to specifically listen to this, but right now, as I'm talking about this, For example, there are like many pump and dump uh there are like lawsuits actually active for celebrities like Kim Kardashian and Elon Musk, just as I'm recording this, okay? And the popularity of cryptocurrencies has resulted in the proliferation of pump and dump schemes within the industry. Pump and dump schemes were traditionally conducted through cold calling, okay? However, the advent of the internet has shifted most of this activity online. Fraudsters can now blast hundreds of thousands of email messages to unsuspecting targets or post messages online on Twitter or stuff like that, and enticing investors to quickly buy a stock. These messages typically claim to have inside information about an imminent development that will lead to a dramatic upswing in the share's price or something like that, right? Once buyers jump in and the stock has significantly increased, the fraudsters of the pump and dump schemes sell their shares, and in these stances, the volume of the sales of these shares is usually substantial, causing the stock price to drop dramatically. Ultimately, many investors experience significant losses due to this. And that was the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this episode. It's already been an hour. It's been an honor to be here with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you guys next time on the next episode.